Welcome to the Capital News. I am your host, Alex Karitis. Today is March 6th, 2019. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're all doing well. So, no surprise today, ladies and gentlemen, the lunatics are still out on the grass, free and wild, just as they've always been. So, of course, I'm particularly talking about Jerry Nadler, Impeach 45, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. You know the names, you know the list. They want blood. They want this president to be impeached. They want his name destroyed. They want his family destroyed. But there does seem to be perhaps some sort of hope, a very small glimmer of hope, that there might actually be a couple non-lunatic adults in the Democrat Party. What do I mean by this? Well, we're starting to see some come out publicly, and we hear by reports also privately, that they're saying, whoa, we might have to slow down here, take a deep breath, and really see what's going on, because this whole thing of Trump and Russia and everything else that he may or may not have been involved in, it might start to backfire. Let's just take, for example, Representative Jerry Connolly, a Democrat from Virginia, who was on the House Oversight and Reform Committee. Here's what he said. Getting to family members, I think, is dangerous. Only because it gets real personal, real fast, and it risks backfiring. Maybe at some point we have to call them in, but I'd rather let prosecutors look at that. So I have to agree with him. Obviously, I don't think these investigations should be taking place, especially not with the Trump-Russia collusion delusion, because that's exactly what it is. You had the Senate Intelligence Committee go after it. They found nothing. They've interviewed over 200 witnesses. They scoured through over tens of thousands of pages, if not hundreds of thousands of pages. They came out in a bipartisan way and said, there's nothing here. We just don't have anything. Of course, now that's starting to do a 180 because you have Senator Warner of Virginia, who is the ranking member on the Senate Intelligence Committee, coming out and now saying, well, there might actually be some evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. Well, where did this come from? A couple weeks ago, we were told there weren't any. And he was one of the Democrats who came out and said as much. Now he wants to backtrack. And he just looks like the buffoon that he is. He gave an interview the other day on Fox News. He couldn't answer simple, basic questions. He just can't do it. They're grasping at straws. They're not even doing that. They're just grasping at the air, hoping that something falls from the sky, and they say, ooh, look, this must have to do with Trump and Russia because it fell from the sky and I was looking for it. It makes no sense whatsoever. But that's our politics today, and it's a true shame. Now, we're going to see what happens if cooler heads prevail. If I was a betting man, I would say no, they will not. They will not. Especially not to the point of stopping dead in their tracks. There's too much momentum in motion. There's too much stuff going on. It's going to be very difficult, especially for Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff in particular, because Jerry Nadler already has those subpoenas. He already wants the information from those 81 people or organizations. That's already set in motion. That snowball's already accumulating and getting bigger as it goes down the hill. To stop it dead in its tracks will be very difficult because it'll make him look like an idiot. Of course, that's what he is, especially as he continues down this path. But again, the ends justify the means. So it doesn't matter what you call them, if they're hypocrites, if they're liars, if they're frauds, if they're wasting taxpayers' money. They couldn't care less. They want to impeach 45, and that's all there is to it. Will they? Well, they have control of the House. Technically, they could impeach him. On what grounds? Who knows? Who knows? They're looking for it. They think they can find it. You even had Jerry Nadler on CNN the other night with Aaron Burnett, and she just asked him, what proof? Is there proof that the president has committed a crime? And of course, Jerry Nadler said, well, to me, I believe he has. I believe he has. Well, there was follow-up, of course. And she says, well, what evidence? What do you have? Well, I just feel that he did. We don't have any evidence. That's what we're looking for. You and everybody on the left have been looking for dirt on this man and his family and his organization going on 4 years. He entered the campaign in 2015. It's now already about to be spring in 2019, and nobody has anything. Not the Senate, not the House, not Republicans, not Democrats, not reporters, not other governments. Nothing has been leaked. Nothing has come out. The Senate Intelligence Committee, nothing. We couldn't find anything. We have the Bob Mueller investigation wrapping up. There's been no major leaks of the sort or anything out of that investigation. But we already know that everybody's starting to downplay it, and that's why you have the likes of Jerry Nadler and Adam Schiff turning the heat up, trying to get some other things going. They want the attention on Donald Trump. They don't want the attention on the Democrats, the Democratic National Committee, and other left-wing organizations that are guilty, that of which they're accusing Trump of being guilty of. We know that Fusion GPS looked and funded that dossier. We know that the Hillary Clinton campaign funded them. We know Christopher Steele was a former UK British agent. We know that Christopher Steele went to look for information from who? The Russians. To get dirt on who? President Trump. Candidate Trump at the time. We know this for a fact. Why is there not investigations into Hillary Clinton, into the Democrats, into Fusion GPS? Dead silence, I know. It would make too much sense, I guess. But here we are. Now, if you follow this podcast, you know that there is potentially an investigation into the Clinton Foundation. Cross your fingers. I hope that's the case. That might be one of the reasons why the old girl, Hillary Clinton, decided to bow out of the 2020 campaign. Doesn't want to get involved. Of course, this time she might really be in handcuffs. She should have been in handcuffs in 2016. But Jim Comey came out and said, well, she's guilty, but we're not going to do it. Again, that's the world of our politics. And it's not getting any better. So let's hope that cooler heads prevail and some of these investigations start to cool down. Maybe Maxine Waters will say, well, you know what? Jerry Nadler's already doing this, that, and the other. Let him go. Adam Schiff's already up to it in his eyeballs. He can't back out either. So maybe those two will continue. Elijah Cummings can back off, maybe. And so can Maxine Waters, maybe. Will they? Again, highly doubtful. Highly doubtful, and it's a shame. It really is a shame. We have a president who was duly elected, who, I mean, all you have to do is watch his rallies. The people love him. I mean, if you don't like him, that's fine. I didn't like Obama, but I wasn't calling for his impeachment every day because, well, maybe he was talking to the Russians, maybe because he had that hot mic moment. Remember that? When he said, after the election, I can talk to Vladimir Putin. You know, really talk to him, but right now I just have to do things for political reasons. Well, where was the Obama-Russia collusion? There wasn't any. There wasn't any. So here's where we are. This is dividing the country, and now, because of it, you got the whack jobs coming out of every single corner. Crazy Bernie, Pocahontas, Spartacus, Kamala Harris, and all they want to do is give you free stuff. And now you got AOC. I guess she's going to have to give somebody their blessing because she's the boss now, because she said so. I mean, I can't make this stuff up. This is what we're dealing with. This is the state of us. It's very scary, and it's a true shame, because this is just really starting to become the antithesis of the founding of this country. Now, another thing I want to get to, because I think it's important, and it all goes to a piece of the puzzle, and what's, I think, starting to take shape in the 2020 election. Obviously, socialism is a key word. President Trump, during his State of the Union, said this country will never be a socialist nation. Very good to say it. Of course, there's already many parts of this country that is socialist. I say that all the time, and I will continue to always say it, because it is. It is a sick, twisted hybrid of corporatism, fascism, with a big dose of socialism. So I don't know if he just means full socialist or whatever, but we really have to get away from it. We have to. We have no choice, or it will destroy us. It already is. But then you have the likes of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris and the like, and many others. They embrace this. They embrace it. 100%. Particularly Bernie Sanders. Kamala Harris, I think she's a political operator. She's going to say things definitely to get elected. How much she actually believes it, I don't know. I'm sure some of it she does, but is she crazy Bernie? No. Is she AOC the boss? No. Elizabeth Warren, well, she's crazy, so she definitely believes in a lot of this stuff. Spartacus, I don't think he knows where he is half the time, to be perfectly honest with you, just when you look at him and listen to his answers that he gives when he's asked some questions. So what does he actually believe? I don't know, but we're going to get to it. Because what I'm going to do after these guys really start to formulate their campaigns and their messages, which will take shape over the course of the summer and the fall, I'm definitely going to be doing a series going through their platforms, going through their websites, seeing what they're really telling the people, what they want, their future, their vision for this country. And we're just going to go through one by one, bullet point by bullet point, and we're going to tear them to shreds. We're going to tear them to shreds because I love doing it, and it's just so much fun and too easy. And I can't pass it up. But if they do make a good point here and there, I will give them credit. You know I do. You know I've even given Crazy Bernie and Pocahontas credit on a couple of things. I'm fair here, but I'm not going to be nice for the sake of being nice either, because I told you if you give them an inch, they take a mile. They take 10 miles. So you can't give here. We've already given enough. We already have $22 trillion in debt because we keep giving and giving and giving. It's got to stop. So what am I concerned with, particularly with 2020 and just the future of this country? We always have the word, it's a right. It's a right. It's your right. We need this right. We need that right. Particularly, it typically deals with healthcare. Healthcare is a right. I said yesterday I wrote an article posted to my website, thecapitalnews.com. Check it out. The 2020 campaign in healthcare is a right. Nope. No, it is not, ladies and gentlemen. It is not a right. Especially how they describe it. Because not only do they want to say that it's a right, they want to say that therefore then means that everybody else has to pay for it. Now that doesn't make any sense. Because as I outline in that article, we have the First Amendment right. Right to free speech, right to peaceful assembly, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, all that stuff. Everybody knows it. Yet where do we see our First Amendment rights really in trouble? We don't. I mean, the First Amendment really does not cause any controversy as far as people agreeing that it should exist and it's a good right. It's the First Amendment. It's a very good one. Right, left, socialist, alt-right, whatever you want to say, everybody agrees with the First Amendment. Now, how far some of it goes as far as hate speech might go and some of those lines, that's another argument. But nobody says we got to get rid of it. It's not like the Second Amendment, which gets a little bit more controversial. But the First Amendment, everybody's pretty much on the same page. So I make this distinction, I make this a point in the article, and I go on to say, well, if you want to protest, you have the right to. But does that mean you get to go to a government office and say, hey, I need $500? And they say, well, what do you need $500 for? Well, because I want to make a huge sign to protest something. And it's my right. So you're the government, give me $500. They're going to laugh at you. And they're probably going to say, you know what, sit down and I'm going to write the check, as they go in the back and they call the paddy wagon to take your ass away because you're crazy. It just doesn't make sense. It's not going to work that way. Okay? And it's not supposed to. Same thing if you wanted to start the next media empire. You want to challenge CNN, Fox News? I got a good idea. I want to challenge those organizations. Let me go down to my government office and say, hey, I have the right to free speech. I have the right to a free press. I want to start the next media outlet. Give me some money. Again, they're going to call the paddy wagon on you. That's just how it is. I don't know where these Democrats and socialists come up with the idea that if it's a right, the government has to pay for it. Because here's where it would really get controversial. When you get to the Second Amendment and you say, hey, again, go to that government office, say, I'd like to buy a .45 pistol, an AK-47, and, I'm going to need some ammunition and some gun cleaner and all that stuff. It's my right. These are the ones I want. Cut me a check for a couple $1,000s. Again, they're going to laugh at you, and they're going to call the paddy wagon. Bernie Sanders should be in a paddy wagon, but he really thinks that healthcare is a right and needs to be paid for. I don't get the connection, because you definitely don't have the right to go into that government office and demand money for a big sign or a small sign or multiple signs. You don't have the right to go to the government office to say, I want money to start the next media outlet. And people definitely are going to say, well, you can't go to the government office and say you want money to go buy weapons. That's just not going to happen, nor should it. The whole purpose of our rights, if you actually take the time to read the Constitution and our founding documents and what our founding fathers were really describing when they were establishing this nation, was they were placing those rights to limit the ability of the government to toil and mess around with our lives. Period. End of story. Our government is supposed to be so small and inconsequential, it's not even supposed to be funny. It's not even funny. Of course, that's not the case. Because now you end up in a situation, if you declare health care to be a right, it becomes an amendment, but it goes a step further. Now everybody has it for free. Of course, it's not free. The taxpayer is going to pay for it. We'd be borrowing money out the you-know-what for however long. Never be able to catch up with ourselves with that one. All you got to do for an example, for a proxy, is to go look out at Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. That's bankrupting us because we have poor demographics. And not only do we have poor demographics, meaning there's more old people than there are younger and up-and-coming younger people, we also have an obesity epidemic. We have an opioid and drug crisis. Well, what do you think that does to the cost of health care and medical care? Sends it through the roof. And then when you have the government involved, all that does is increases cost at an even faster rate. Look at the data. Look at my book, The Cynic's Guide to Investing. Anytime the government gets involved in anything, it becomes more expensive. The quality goes down. It's like clockwork. Yet when you have free market capitalism and you allow true competition to enter the market, you get the exact opposite. You get more choices. You get better quality for lower prices. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. Why people, and this is proven. That's the other sad thing. This debate is over. There is no debate. Free market capitalism v. socialism. Time's up. Socialism's gone, dead. Bury it. But somehow it keeps sprouting its ugly head. And now it's in the United States of America. Full swing, full force, 2020. It's not going to win, ladies and gentlemen. I talk about it because I want people educated about it. They will not win. They might technically impeach the president because they have the power to do it. They probably have the votes. Obviously, they have the majority in the House. And of course, you might be able to muscle or convince some Republicans to come on board if they should actually uncover something. But then it has to go to the Senate. The man will not be kicked out. He will not be kicked out. So we'll see again if cooler heads prevail. But here's another thing I want to get to as far as our First Amendment rights go. Because this gets to a broader argument and a broader discussion that we will continue to have here on the Capitol News. Because it's very important as we go through the 21st century and in the politics that we have. So there was a podcast on Joe Rogan's podcast. He is one of the highest-ranking podcasts out there. Very interesting show. I recommend it to everybody. Now, he does have vulgar language. He might smoke a little something. If you watch him on YouTube or if you listen to him on iTunes, obviously you're not going to see that stuff. If you recall, he was the one who interviewed Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, and he actually smoked a joint on the podcast, and he got in a little bit of trouble for that. But nevertheless, that's who Joe Rogan is. He's an intelligent guy. He's a comedian, but very intelligent, smart guy, very knowledgeable. He has a diverse group of people that he interviews. He asks very good questions. He's a great listener, and he focuses in on whatever the topic is. He focuses in and he lets his guests talk, which I love, because there's too many times where you have guests come on a program and the host just interrupts and always has to make their point as if they're the the best thing since sliced bread. If that's the case, then don't have guests. So I give Joe Rogan a lot of credit for that, and definitely check out his podcast. But the one I'm referencing is in regards to a recent one, which is just the other day. He had with the founder and CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey was there along, obviously, with Joe Rogan, one of the attorneys for Twitter, and another gentleman who is basically, from what I could gather, sort of a freelance journalist. And the discussion was on Twitter as a free speech platform. What are the limitations? Why does there seem to be some people who get punished and some people who don't? Why do some people get suspended and some people get permanently banned? And what's going on there? These are serious questions to have. And this is, and while Twitter, I think, is already 12, 13 years old, if you can believe it, it's still in its infancy as far as its ability to reach people in a broad way, such as YouTube, Google, and Facebook. Same thing. This is a national debate that needs to be had, because you have these programs, and they're basically monopolies. Are there other platforms out there that can compete, quote unquote, compete with Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube? Not really. I mean, while there are substitutes and other outlets out there, I mean, they pale into comparison when it comes to Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So you basically have here an oligopoly of control when it comes to speech and information. This gets really dangerous. This is sort of a slippery road of 1984. It can happen before you realize it. Now, the interesting thing was, if you watch this podcast, and again, I suggest you do, it's a long one, though. Most of Joe Rogan's podcasts are long. They can range from 1 hour to 5 hours. So you might want to break it up or do this, that, or the other, but it is interesting. I think this one was a few hours long. The interesting thing, and I want to take Jack Dorsey and his colleague at their word, that they take a lot of this stuff very seriously, that they understand the power that they have, and they want to be as open and transparent as possible. Now, some of the concerns from the freelance journalist were very valid, extremely valid. And while some of the discussion got a little heated, it was very professional for the most part, and everybody was open to everybody's comments and ideas. And the freelance journalist was really concerned with an organization having that much power. And he went further and was on the lines of, well, not only that, but Twitter is a publicly traded company. And to his knowledge, Twitter was owned, I don't know, give a percentage, 5-6% by a foreign country. I think Saudi Arabia, somebody in there. So now he's saying, well, how do I know, as just a citizen, not just as a user of Twitter, but as a citizen of the United States of America, how do I know that that country is not determining how Twitter operates because they own such a significant share of the company? That's a valid question. Now, of course, the CEO dismissed it as that's not the case. I happen to believe him, but it's a valid point. It brings questions in. I mean, but there's nothing you can do. You're a publicly traded company. People want to buy it. They're going to buy as many shares as they want. I mean, that's how it works. But it still goes to that greater point. Who gets to control the debate? Because we're talking about here Trump-Russia collusion and how Russians supposedly used Facebook. They spent $1 million, we're told. They created ads both for and against Trump, both for and against Hillary Clinton, and somehow they fixed this election. They spent $1 million on Facebook ads, and they created President Trump. Can you believe it? I mean, the Russians must be geniuses, because you got Clinton trying to spend $1 billion. Trump spent tens of millions of dollars. I mean, all you got to do is the Russians. You have a few Russians get together, they create a couple ads, drink some vodka, and they get to determine who's the next president of the United States. I mean, that's what the Democrats tell us. That's what the lunatics tell us happened. So you have to believe that. So where does that control come into? Because they have this other outlet they could get to, too. They could get to Twitter, and I'm sure they use Twitter. So how do you rein it in? Does Twitter have the ability to stop it? Who gets to determine that? Is it their algorithms? Can we trust the algorithms? Do they trust their own algorithms? How many people does Twitter employ to look at the millions and millions of tweets a day? You get what I'm getting at? It is a very serious question. I think Twitter, at least from an idea standpoint, is a great idea. I'm on Twitter. I use Twitter. You get a lot of good news feeds off of that, some funny stories. It's definitely a way to communicate and to see what's going on out there. Definitely. But these organizations are extremely powerful. And if somebody's not minding the store and people aren't paying attention, there could be a whole debate going on that people aren't even aware of because the higher-ups in these organizations said, well, we don't like those politics, so we're going to shut these people down. That's dangerous because you're really starting to ride along a very thin edge of a private organization having control over something that is protected by our Constitution. And this is something that, really has never existed, especially not on this scale. So this is definitely something that we need to be mindful of. It's something that has to have a national debate. There's a lot of things that we have to have a national debate about. But I definitely think this one is up there. It's not the most important one, in my opinion, but it's definitely probably in a top 10, top 15 of a national discussion on our rights and on the power of some of these organizations that try to promote free speech. And I think at their core, they genuinely are, especially after watching the interview with Joe Rogan. Jack Dorsey does seem like a genuine person who understands the power that his company has and understands that they have to have a role and keep a check on things, but at the same time allow as much speech as possible as long as it's not calling for the harm of people or animals or that type of stuff. So this conversation is going to continue, but start thinking about it and send me your thoughts. Take a look at that podcast. Just think about it in general, and we'll discuss this again. Thanks so much for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure having you as always. Please like, share, subscribe, leave your comments. I'd love to hear from you. This is the Capital News. I am Alex Kreitis. Godspeed.